Okay, what I'm going to do is, given that I'm not familiar with what you all do, and much of the audience won't be, can I ask you to introduce yourselves one by one? Just tell me who you are, what your business is, and just a very short snippet about each of them. Graham, if I can come to you first.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Justin. My name is Graham Jones. I help lead a non-for-profit organisation or a community development organisation called Sulla's Project. I am speaking a little bit later, and I will mention a little bit more about that, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what I do.
I'm Ferg Brown. I run a specialty coffee shop called Roasted Brown Gourmet Coffee, and it's also a bit of an art centre in Temple Bar, where we just are really into coffee and really into people, and I guess are trying to create a space that's like a living room for artists in Temple Bar, being such an art centre in Dublin.
My name is Justin Morton. I am the owner of a company called KIT, and we are the largest importer of gloves in Ireland. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm in a boy band here, by the way. Boyzone, that is, not One Direction, more Boyzone. And I've been involved in an initiative with the Holy Trinity Church last year, providing hats, scarves and gloves to homeless people.
Hi, my name's Joseph, and I run a company with three other guys. I'm a filmmaker, so we're called Tiny Arc, and we make videos.
I'm Cameron. I'm actually no longer an entrepreneur. I'm probably an entrepreneur by heart, but my company sadly came to an end last year. But when I was an entrepreneur, I ran a company. It was a non-profit company called ARC. ARC standing for Acts of Random Kindness, and our whole ethos was try to reshape or rebrand kindness in the social space as no longer this spiritual thing that only church people do, but this kind of fun thing that anybody could do. So it was based around a simple idea that every time you wore our clothing range, you did an act of random kindness for somebody else. That's me.
The Innovate Dublin Festival that's taking place across the city, from my simplistic view of what's happening in Ireland or in Dublin at the moment, certainly the media interest would be that your job is to create jobs, given that we've nearly 500,000 people unemployed at the moment, and I'm sure that from your perspective, your job is also to make money, and that the two have to some extent, go hand in hand. When Oz was talking earlier on about in America hanging your faith almost like a coat at the door at work, can I ask each of you, and you can take this in your own terms if you like, what role, if any, does faith have in entrepreneurship, creating money and creating jobs, or does it have any?
Well, Gav, I guess for myself and the three other guys, we're all about the same age, kind of mid-20s, and I don't even know if we intended to be entrepreneurs. I think we started coming out of college and we couldn't find a job, so we had to create our own. And thankfully things have gone better and better, and we're able to hire other people. So that's always a pleasure. First and foremost, we've always had at the start that we just want to create a great company and create great products and create great services. And we are all Christians in the company, all directors, but we didn't want to be a Christian company. We wanted to be a great video company and create great video, and we very much believe that naturally we will instill biblical values, and that will come out not necessarily in the videos that we produce, but in the way that we treat our suppliers, the way that we treat our clients, and the way that we treat our freelancers.
Okay, any of the rest of you like to take up that question?
Yeah, for me, I used to lead a couple of Christian organizations over the past few years, and for me actually getting into business was all about faith, because I felt in church or in Christian organizations, it was more about itself. So I thought, well, I'm going to get out there, and engage with culture and not just engage with what I think is engaging with culture. So the main reason we opened a coffee shop that was engaging with arts was because you know, there's a huge part of our city that needs to be engaged with, and it needs to experience God. So we didn't set it up as a Christian company. It's not a coffee shop for Christians by any means. It's a coffee shop that has some Christian staff and has some non-Christian staff. It makes a wage. It has to cover family, apparently. But but first, like it's really about acknowledging that there is no divide between what you do in your work every day and what you do on Wednesday nights and Sundays in church. So we, myself and Rob, who is like a manager there, and we just we believe in our customers. We love them to bits, and we see God do amazing stuff. And we don't treat it like a Christian project at all. It's not a Christian project at all. It's just Christians doing what they do every day and believing that because we have the Spirit of God in us, that's going to affect the people around us.
Justin, is faith part of business choices, or does it, or is business choices more simplistic in terms of its bottom line money? Really,
I think that people can be selfish, that businesses are by definition selfish, but that doesn't necessarily only mean the bottom line. For most businesses, they want to create something. Entrepreneurs want to create. That's what they set out to do, and it doesn't always mean money. It can mean, I think, for most people, it'll mean balance, where you create something positive and you impact people in a positive way. So I think the bottom line, the money is a kind of a spin-off of a success, and I think some businesses maybe set the success. They measure the success only with turnover or profit, and it's not necessarily measured with what the impact is on the society or on the employees or the suppliers or the people they interact with. So I think you can still be selfish, but that you must have the goals, the kind of selfish goals, more broad than just turnover and profit.
Graham, are Christian values, or indeed any faith values, a luxury that really only small businesses can afford, that with bigger businesses, with more people to accommodate, it's more difficult, that perhaps the five of you are luckier in small businesses to be able to indulge your beliefs?
Yeah, well, I suppose just in relation to that question, and also the last one, for me, and it's not my own thought, like I don't think there is such a thing as a Christian organisation. I don't think you can have a Christian business, and I think the way it's been summed up to me was you can't have such a thing as a Christian bicycle. You can only have Christian people, and therefore those people make decisions based on their own faith. But just in relation to your question there about, you know, small, medium and large, I was recently over in the UK visiting friends. We went on a tour of the Cadbury factory, which is in Birmingham, and I was amazed with what's now called the corporate social responsibility of that company, and its origins was in a man and a family that were Christians who had a very strong faith, and they set out to produce a fantastic product, but also as well to look after their staff, and through that they've become one of the biggest employers in the area and the British Isles, and their staff were always looked after. I think they took the view that rather than having a 6-day week, they were the first company in Britain to have a 5.5-day week. And that was just an example of how they set out intentionally and determined to not just look after making a lot of money, but doing something really, really well, and in the process looking after the people that they encountered, whether it be staff, customers or suppliers, as we've mentioned. So, but again, that comes back to my original point, that they were Christian people living out their lives, and that just grew into something as a byproduct. That was a very successful thing for them and their employees.
Cam, if you want to take up that.
Yeah, we were actually kind of just talking about this over lunch. I think, like, it's interesting. I've moved from running my own small company, and now I consult rather large companies about brand strategy, brand direction, and I guess in our kind of spiritual hippie term, the soul of a company. I've found it very hard to influence that in large companies. You know, we've worked with Oxfam Europe Microsoft Europe and Oxfam Ireland. Those two are two of our biggest clients, and I think they come to us and they say we need brand strategy to get these certain these certain target audiences, and we say, okay, well, this is what they believe. You know, we do research and we say, this is what they believe. This is how you need to tap into them, and this is hence how you need to change your culture within your organization, and then that will reflect on, you know, your external communications. And I've certainly seen it to be very difficult for large established companies to really make a shift in their values. But I think Cadbury's was a great example. They were born with Christian values. They were born from a Christian family who rooted it in from the very beginning. So I think it's definitely easier as a small business to, you know, spread your values and really kind of influence your employees to act in a kingdom kind of way. But I don't think it's impossible. I'm reading a lot of great case studies of huge companies that had just incredible leaders. And I think, like, for me, the differentiating factor for the leaders is that they've cared about their employees first and foremost. And they've put so much time into instilling values into them, not necessarily preaching the gospel, but instilling gospel values into them. And then as a result, you've seen the culture of the company change. So for me, leaders is definitely a big factor.
Can I open this up to the rest of you now? If any of you would like to put any questions to our panel? I'm scanning with eyes here. Anybody with a hand? Apart from looking for a business loan or a job? Yes?
We have dilemmas all the time because, like, we get, so like on one day we'll get an inquiry from, and this is the extreme, but we'll get an inquiry from the pro-life campaign, and then the next day it'll be an inquiry from the pro-choice campaign. So I haven't figured out how to, you know, that happens all the time. Like we might get an inquiry from, say, a drinks company or something, or something that just naturally would fight against some of our values. And
what do you do?
I don't really have an answer, to be honest. We still don't have an answer. We definitely just take it by case basis. We get in a room, we huddle together, we talk about it, and we figure out whether we can do it in a way that we feel that we're being true to our values. Justin, is there a Christian way to fire somebody?
I don't know. I think you know, if you have a case, for example, where you have to fire someone, it's a question of you owe it to the organisation. If the organisation is going to survive with one less person, and if it has that person, it may fail, then you owe it to everyone else there to let them go or fire them. So you've got to think about this organisation in the future. If it can make some difference if it exists. If it fails because it didn't make harsh choices early enough, then you've taken something from the future.
Any further questions? Yes.
How can we help mentor, facilitate the emergence of more women entrepreneurs?
We're asking 5 men, of course.
Just in relation to that, the person that set up the organisation that I now lead with her was a lady called Salah, or is a lady called Salah. She was wonderful. And she is one of the most dynamic, strong people that I have come across, and on first glance you may not consider that to be the case because of her physical stature and also then her timid nature. And I sometimes do feel that where we are now in our sort of positions of co-leaders, that I do certainly get more of a profile because I am a man. And I often think that's very unfair, considering she was the one that started it and we wouldn't be there without her. And secondly, because it's just not right. And I think that is definitely a challenge for us all, and it's something that it doesn't just affect, the idea of entrepreneurs. It is a leadership thing in general. And that certainly would be my view, and it's certainly a cultural thing. And for me, I think that starts from a very young age with talking to people, and we have a mentoring program in Sulla's project where we're talking to young children about what they're going to do in their future. And I think, and it followed into what Sam was talking about earlier, is getting in amongst children, both boys and girls, very, very young, and saying you have the potential to become a leader. And I think that's something that all of us have to buy into, though, to do that. And it's very easy to say, but not really do. Follow that.
My name is Mary.
Could I just add to the other question about,
Yes.
I think like I often find when God speaks to me, he tells me to do stupid things that nobody else understands. And thankfully that's backed up biblically. Like Moses throwing a stick in the ground, and like there's all sorts of crazy examples of people doing things that just don't make sense in the immediate future. And I've definitely like just been brought up to respond to that voice, that calling. And I guess I decided from the start of my business, I'm always going to react to that, regardless of who's around me. So like I've got millions of stupid examples of things that we did, but like one that got me in trouble the most, and especially as a leader it was very hard, was the Sabbath. I was very, very integral about keeping a Sabbath day. So when we had deadlines and we had projects or orders that weren't going to go out in time, and I said, we are not working today, like we're taking the day off, we're going skinny dipping, or we're doing whatever we want. We genuinely did do that. Like it didn't make sense to our investors, and it didn't make sense to the team. But I think like those are ways that you can distinguish yourself as, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm following God. But I think there's an inherent truth in there that if you hold on to those beliefs and kind of the guidelines that God has given us, I've really seen blessing through being obedient to those kind of things. But
does that not sort of crystallize the business dilemma that while you might be keeping true to your faith, your business could suffer as a result?
Well, in my experience, it hasn't. And you could say, oh well, that order went out a day late, and you've got angry customers. But to be honest, like that's the sacrifice that I think, as a Christian leader or a Christian business leader, I think you should make those hard choices, because ultimately I think that's more important. Is that a dilemma for any of the rest of you?
Yeah, I'd be similar in that we try to run our business based on hearing from God, and quite often that just looks like every other business, But come August time, I felt like God was saying, I want you to close for 2 weeks in August, and cash was already low, and we were already struggling, and that seemed like the worst idea in the world for a business, especially a coffee shop where there's 15 other coffee shops around, And I wrestled with it for a few days, and God kept speaking and reaffirming and stuff like that. And God's main issue was, you need to rest, your family needs to rest, and I want your business to rest, And we finally came up with the courage to say, we're shutting for 2 weeks. We put up a few big signs. And afterwards, when we came back, we realized we dodged the biggest bullet for our business, and that Temple Bar dies for those 2 weeks in August, and we would have sunk completely. And secondly, our trade doubled when we came back, and it has remained doubled ever since, Now, that makes no sense. So the dilemma there is, do we have the guts to follow God, even though it goes completely against the rat race of typical business? It looks like a bad idea. It is a bad idea. Do we have the courage to trust that God will come through or not? And that's the kind of dilemmas we definitely face a lot.
Any further questions? Please. Yes.
How do you know when God is speaking to you, or are you just speaking to yourself?
You don't.
I normally disagree with God. Seriously, I do, and I don't believe, you can ever hear from God all the way through your life, and it's very rarely stuff you agree with. to be honest. And if it's always stuff you agree with, you're probably not hearing from God, you know. So that's kind of one of the things I market with.
I'm surprised to hear you tell me that God talks to you. That's all.
And also, I think we could probably relate, it's the ones that I can't let go. So if God says shut for 2 weeks, or I say shut for 2 weeks, I think those kind of things just float off into the distance as stupid Cameron ideas. But the ones that you lose sleep over, or they keep coming back to you, you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, maybe. But you know, you clearly heard God there when it was a crazy idea. But yeah, it's hard, definitely.
Can I ask God, just before you finish, just because you're all coming at business from a slightly different perspective than perhaps than I, for example, I'm used to hearing about, and our constant focus on business, certainly from a media point of view over the last couple of years, is who's going to save us, how are we going to be saved, who's going to fix the country. Do any of you, from the unique perspective perhaps that you bring to business, and all of you, by running your own businesses, are creating jobs, so you are helping to some extent, but is there something we're missing in the general conversation about how Ireland's going to get out of the hole that it's in that perhaps you can offer from your own perspectives?
Turn off RTE.
and lose 3,000 jobs, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think the specific thing I think that we can do differently is to be more positive with our mindset. And when the media discussion was on earlier on, there was a discussion that the media's job is to challenge and always to be questioning. I don't know, is it that? You know, since when was it not communicating the news of the day? Since when did it change from that to being skeptical and questioning? And I think something that could be done differently, that is being missed, is just the positive mindset. You know, as a business person, you create a picture of the future, and you don't take no for an answer, and you remain positive till you get there. And the same, obviously, is for the church. So I think that's something missing from society, is the positivity.
Anybody else? Sorry, Greg.
One very brief comment, and then it's more of an observation. What I see around me is quite often people like Justin, who's sort of a small to medium-sized company, and they are surviving and doing well in this backdrop of absolute gloom. And there seems to be a little connection between those people who are doing it and the people then are making the decisions about the policy. And what I would love to see happen, I think would be a very creative way, is a better connection between those people who seem to have the answer in a local context or a local solution with those then that actually are making the decisions about all of our futures. And that would be a forum of business and politics together.
Thanks very much, guys.